So current challenges and areas for reform. So one is measuring poverty. Currently, poverty in the US is measured according to the thresholds that represent the minimum amount of cash income required to support households, known as the official poverty measure, the OPM. This does not include benefits, not in the form of cash, such as public housing or food stamps. In 2011, the Census Bureau introduced the Supplemental Poverty Measure, SPM, which defines the needs and income of households more broadly by accounting for benefits other than cash and considering average expenditures on food, clothing, housing, and utilities, as well as geographic adjustment for housing costs. How poverty is measured makes a great deal of difference. The SPM suggests the real poverty rate is 5 to 6% lower than the OPM, the official poverty measure. And there is a chart here that just like to point out, there's about 8 different levels of poverty. Oh, no, it's for families, households with more than 8 people need to add an extra $4,000 for each additional person. So one person, the poverty guideline is $12,000, $12,490. For a family of 8, it's $43,430. There's a chart here that really shows the numbers.
Yeah. For that family to actually survive, they would need a family of 8, and I still think it would be a low number, you know, literally over 120,000 for them to even try to think about breaking even.
And it varies based on cities also and the cost of living in the environment that you are in.
Absolutely.
So the anti-poverty programs. So anti-poverty programs suffer from duplication overlap across agencies, which cause inefficiencies and waste. So there's a picture here of the labyrinth nature of the welfare system. And there's a big chart that illustrates this. And I invite you to go to theposseCircle.org to see this brief and see the chart. So for example, there are 32 federal housing programs run by 5 different cabinet departments. There are 11 different healthcare insurance and assistance programs administered by the Office of Personnel Management, Department of Defense, and 5 agencies within the Department of Health and Human Services. In 2018, the federal government spent $68 million on SNAP and other food assistance programs. The amount of SNAP benefits paid in error increased to 6.8% in 2018 from 6.3% in 17, amounting to about $4 billion paid out in error. Medicaid made $36.2 billion in improper payments in 2018. And in 2018, the Department of Labor improperly paid $88 million in unemployment insurance. The Social Security Administration improperly paid $4.8 billion in supplemental security income, and the IRS improperly paid an estimated $18.4 billion in earned income tax credits. So that information is found on payment.accuracy.gov. So there's this incredible chart I can't even read with a ton of boxes of describing all of the different programs. We are spending an extraordinary amount of taxpayers' money on fighting poverty, yet the poverty rate remains roughly the same. Streamlining these programs to avoid duplications and overlap may add some relief to the overburdened and costly system, particularly for programs that overlap. Program staff often spend time on duplicative work. A USDA report even noted that food and nutrition services could potentially achieve cost savings by taking actions to eliminate duplication and overlap in its 15 different food assistance programs. Unnecessary steps add to administrative and operating costs and can lead to mistakes that increase both overpayment and underpayment. A different solution could focus on where federal dollars are invested. based on a study done by Civic Enterprises. An annual federal investment of $6.4 billion a year in proven existing federal programs like AmeriCorps, Back on Track Schools, Public Allies, Service and Conservation Corps, or Youth Build programs would reconnect 1 million youth adults every year. Each reconnection to education and employment could directly save taxpayers $236,000 and will save a total social cost of $704,000. Thus, if these programs succeed with just half of their participants, the lifetime direct return on investment to taxpayers would be of over $118 billion for each year of investment. I think the key point here is being able to look at all of the programs across agencies to really streamline. That's a major undertaking for any one agency to take. I'm not sure what agency would oversee this, right? I know it's maybe it's OMB, but you would need to have all agencies commit and being on board with this goal of potentially eliminating a program that they own. That's really hard to accomplish in a government structure.
Yeah, particularly between in a bipartisan way, and not a lot of committees give up control and purview and what they're responsible for. So it would take years to do, but man, it would be worth it. I had no idea until I read the brief how much money is available to families that are struggling through this poverty continuum. It's enough to break the cycle if it were all coordinated in a way that didn't, as Ruby Payne says it, just aid in the tyranny of the moment. Many of the programs address a right now problem. My lights are turned off, my water's turned off, and these are all really important. But there are very few agencies and programs that talk about how can we help you become self-sufficient? How can we help you with financial literacy? It's just, the scales are so tipped on solving the current crisis as opposed to solving the long-term problem.
And really, for people seeking help, it's so complicated. That's what I keep hearing, right? It is so complicated, all of these siloed programs, that you end up spending your days waiting in line to meet with a social worker at the Social Security office, or filling out forms, and it becomes so much that you can't have the energy then to really think through, okay, how can I break this cycle that I'm in? You're spending all this time just trying to get the funds to survive. So I think the complexity of it all is also a big hurdle that will not that prevent us from truly addressing this issue in our country.
I think, and I shamelessly will plug a couple of programs that try to do that, which is the Moving Up program that you referenced earlier, that really works on through getting ahead in a just getting by world, by Phil DeVoe and Ruby and the team, works on how do you help people that are in poverty change the mindset? Because if you can change the mindset, you can change a whole lot of things, right? And one of the parts of that is really grappling with the fact that I am poor, which, believe it or not, many of our investigators in this class don't even realize that they're living in poverty. Why? Because this is the way they've lived always, And it's sad, but once you realize that, which can be debilitating from a trauma standpoint, then you can start thinking in the abstract and figure out, how you can do better. The Bridge program that I've had the honor of leading, this organization has a 35-year history of surrounding the families that we serve for 2 years. So it's not like I'm going to give you a house to stay because you're today homeless. It's let me put you in this 2-year program surrounded by mentors who will meet with you weekly and help you with financial literacy and all these other outside agencies that's going to, help you get to even first and then to get ahead. That it takes between 2 on an aggressive plan to 5 years to break the cycle of poverty with a ton of support. So I just am an advocate that we've got to work on the trauma side, because most people in poverty are traumatized with no mental health help, and then surrounding resources to become self-sufficient in addition to helping in the moment.
Yeah, I think I would highly recommend reading that book, Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby Payne.
I have that.
it's absolutely brilliant, because the pieces of it are not just material. It's very much in the mindset and also what you know to break the cycle. If you don't know that you are in a cycle, you're not going to break it, which was your point earlier. But that book is really great. So I will learn more about the Move Up program, because Rudy Payne is phenomenal on just understanding the framework. I mean, this brief provides the facts and the dollars around the policies.
Right.
But to understand how to break the cycle, that book is really a must read or listen. I've listened to the audio version, which is really great.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a bit.
Read the poverty trap.
Yep. Let's talk about the poverty trap.
Yeah.
People fall into the poverty trap or the welfare trap when what they earn at a job is not much more than what they can get from the government by not working, which functions as a disincentive to work more. Michael Tanner of the Cato Institute explains the poverty trap in this 5-minute clip, which is in the brief, and I had a chance to look at it, and it was pretty telling, from Prager University. Dozens of different welfare programs often impose high effective marginal tax rates that make it harder for low-income people to transition out of these programs and into the middle class. The tax rates can discourage work, and it has fee in parentheses. A marginal tax rate is the percentage of an additional dollar of earnings that is unavailable to an individual because it is paid in taxes or offset by reduced benefits from the government programs. For example, the 2015 median marginal tax rate for households just above poverty line, I found this astounding, was about 34%. Are you kidding me? This means that for each additional dollar of income a family in this range earns, the family would lose about 1/3 of this additional dollar to taxes or lost benefits. This was the highest marginal tax rate of any income level, showing that earned income rises, that as earned income rises, declines in unearned income offset large portions of the gain. He basically said, and I had to write it down, that, and you'll see it in the video, that a family making $20,000 a year would literally have to leap to an additional $25,000 in order to make up for all the lost benefits that they're going to continue to be declined from as a result of making more money. So there is no incentive to even, because who's going to make a 120% increase in a year? Not many. So I just found that this was amazing. I have so many families that I've helped that, even in the Moving Up program, that she wanted to get a job. As soon as she got a job, she had no insurance for her twin toddlers. And so she's educated, but they can't afford not to be insured. I mean, it is a vicious cycle.
And then there is the Georgia Opportunity Center created a calculator in Atlanta. So based on your location in Atlanta, like which county, because there's different tax rate, and it kind of shows how it calculates how much more you need to be making in order to maintain kind of your same level of benefits and revenues that you are getting from the government. And then there is definitely, and they call it kind of the poverty cliff, where you just can't, like the leap, just as you described, the leap that you have to make in terms of income just to get the benefit, the insurance, the food stamps, to get those benefits is unrealistic given the levels of education and opportunities available in the areas. So that is a project I know that several, the Georgia Opportunity Center is really working on making that calculator also available to other states so that it's a useful tool when you're designing state-based poverty alleviating policies.
Right. It's interesting because one of the other challenges for families breaking the cycle of poverty, I know particularly here in DuPage County, is the percentage of their income that goes towards living. The household income, I mean, what you pay in rent or mortgage should technically not exceed 30, maybe 40%. But in most cases, families in poverty in DuPage County, I can tell you, are paying upwards of 50%. One of their checks is going towards rent. And therefore, that means something will not be covered by the end of the month. Something is going to go astray. And so I think that's another piece that somehow has to be calculated into this whole picture of the struggle to break the cycle, because the cost of living far outweighs what wages are. So let's read on the local approach. Often programs to eradicate poverty are designed by those unfamiliar with local conditions, better understood by local leaders who have the knowledge and the credibility necessary to implement change. Designing programs at the local level allows the assistance to be tailored to fit the needs of those in poverty. For example, the private community-based organization, the Woodson Center, provides effective community and faith-based organizations with training and technical assistance, and links them to sources of support and evaluates their experiences for public policy. The Woodson Center provides training to more than 2,600 leaders of community organizations in 39 states and helps community residents deal with issues such as youth violence, substance abuse, teen pregnancy, and homelessness, joblessness, family dissolution, poor education, and deteriorating neighborhoods. For example, one Milwaukee-based program under the umbrella of the Woodson Center, the Violence Free Zone Initiative, is reducing violence and disruption in 12 Milwaukee public schools and is preparing students in the most disadvantaged communities to learn and to succeed. In his column for the Ripon Society, Robert Woodson of the Woodson Center writes, "History clearly demonstrates that achievements against the scourge of poverty must originate among those experiencing problems. It begins with the belief that self-development is possible, and no matter what circumstance, they have the capacity to be agents of their own uplift." Might I add that that is the absolute premise of the Moving Up program and getting ahead in a just getting by world. Woodson knows there's no magic policy lever we can pull to eradicate poverty. However, there are effective community-based models that are successfully solving some of our nation's most intractable problems. Empowering the states and communities on the front lines can truly break down barriers to opportunity and make the safety net more effective. Now, in the organization that I don't start leading until June 1, but what's beautiful about it is that for the 2 years that they're in transitional housing, they pay no rent. So you have a substantial amount of your income that most people in poverty are paying just to stay housed. You now have an opportunity to save that amount, and many of our families have not enough income to make a down payment on a house or a condo, or they leave with the reserves that you're teaching in financial literacy for 3 or 6 months, so that when they get out on their own, they're not, back into a situation due to a problem. And it's a very generous way to try to help families actually get kind of a jump start, which is so difficult when you're in a hole.
Yeah, would you say that's part of the housing first kind of model, like first provide housing to stabilize housing, and then people can really start working on becoming self-sufficient through education or different programs?
I would agree with that. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got to make sure that people are housed appropriately. And I remember it as a child. We were evicted many times. And it really causes so much disruption in schooling and, education, and just so many in the psyche of a child and of a parent, that if you could stabilize housing and, have some supportive programs around it, you can help people think and get past, that huge tyranny of the moment, particularly a lot of single parents. So I agree with that. I'm excited that we can do that. I told one family that I'm mentoring that it's like, Bridge Communities or other organizations that provide transitional housing is writing a $60,000 check, a free check, that you don't have to pay back. I mean, it is such a blessing if you have the learning and the training around it to use those saved funds in a way that's going to help you in the future.
Yeah, I think like what's also highlighted here, and maybe could be highlighted even more, is the importance of these local programs. Because I know here on the north side, I was involved in an organization called Housing Opportunities for Women, which has a similar model of stabilizing housing and then offering the programs to really get people to become self-reliant, and they start paying most of their rent. But this idea of finding the programs that are local, and maybe it needs to be even at I think a smaller unit than even counties, because it's really communities. And it kind of gives you to think pause to think about, well, all right, in our village, in our community, what is the poverty alleviation program, or that is part of our community? Because every community has poverty in one form or another.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you don't even know about it, but it's still there in different capacities. And I think like that's not, how do you make that real, right? How do you measure the effectiveness? How do you construct these programs so there's a collaboration instead of just a fragmentation of piecemeal program? I think that's the biggest challenge for all of the social organizations tackling, is how our effort coordinated, measured, and to really achieve the one goal.
Yeah, I am convinced, and I can tell you from my own personal story, that while, I had access to education, and that I happened upon that really, but it literally takes a village to raise a child and to help people break the cycle of poverty. And if we can influence interagency collaboration for the greater good of, we're literally serving the same person and doing all these different things. I think the organization that I'm serving now has really brought together, I must be, 10, 20 different agencies around the families that we serve, because you can't be experts in everything. But that's a big challenge for agencies to work collectively together, because everybody's fighting for the same resources and fighting for the same people that making grants. And gosh, if we can figure out a way, and some people are doing it well, to get beyond that, we could really better serve the community.
Yeah, there is actually I'll have to tell you more about it, but there is an organization called, a startup in Chicago, it's called Solve.is, and it's essentially a platform to keep track of and measure really the effectiveness of all of these programs that could be available for people to really achieve their full potential. So connecting employers to people in underserved communities who need a job, but also connecting those people with all of the services that they need to support their flourishing. So that might be something worth also looking into. But I think this fragmentation, or looking at this coordination, and it takes so much, it's almost impossible for a program to say, you know what, you guys do it a lot better than we do. So we're just going to be absorbed by yours. I think, I don't know how you start that. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't, but it doesn't have to be absorption. It really has to be collaboration. There are a lot of things that, bridge communities, loaves and fishes, moving up, don't do well, but we go out and try to find other people who do, and figure out, can we work together for the greater good of the people we serve? That to me is a better model than gobbling them up.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Right.
In the entrepreneurial spirit.